In February 1969, the Beatles' time together was drawing to a close. They had just finished the recording sessions for their Get Back album, which were tense and unpleasant, when Paul McCartney rang up music producer George Martin, asking him to produce their new record. Martin replied that he would only produce if they let him produce the way that they used to. With that, and barely 3 weeks after the Get Back sessions, the Beatles were back in the studio, unaware that this work was going to be the group's last. The first sessions for Abbey Road began on the 22nd of February 1969. There, the group recorded some tracks that eventually found a home on the album, songs such as I Want You, She's So Heavy, Oh Darling, Octopus's Garden, and Something. Because of Ringo Starr's commitments on the film The Magic Christian, recording for the album was put on hold until April. During this time, a lot happened. On March 12, 1969, Paul married Linda Eastman, and 8 days later, John Lennon married Yoko Ono. While on honeymoon in Paris, John had a sudden inspiration for a new song telling the events of his and Ono's wedding, The Ballad of John and Yoko, which would go on to become the Beatles' 17th and final UK #1 single. He wanted to record it immediately, but with George Harrison on holiday and Ringo busy filming, this meant that only John and Paul were to play. Reflecting this somewhat unusual situation, the session recordings include the following exchange.
It got a bit faster, Ringo.
Okay, George.
Come July 1st, Ringo had wrapped filming, and with George Martin at the helm, the Beatles' final album took focus, then booking the 2:30 to 10 PM studio slot every day until August 29th to complete it. On the 4th of July, the first solo single by a Beatle was released, Lennon's Give Peace a Chance, credited to Lennon-McCartney, which was Lennon's way of thanking McCartney for helping him record the Ballad of John and Yoko at such short notice. Recording for this upcoming album continued through July and August, and the last backing track, for Because, was taped on the 1st of August. Overdubs continued through the month, with the final sequencing of the album coming together on the 20th of August. The completion and mixing of I Want You, She's So Heavy on this date was the last occasion on which all four Beatles were in a studio together, and so, with that, recording was completed on Everest. That's right, the album's name was not originally Abbey Road, but was instead named Everest after a brand of cigarettes favoured by engineer Geoff Emerick. The album was given its new name after the band were reluctant to travel to the Himalayas for a photo session. The iconic front cover was sketched by McCartney and taken on the 8th of August. At 11:35 that morning, photographer Ian Macmillan was given only 10 minutes to take the photo, while a policeman held up traffic behind the camera. McCartney examined the 6 resulting photographs with a magnifying glass before deciding which one would be used on the album sleeve. In stark contrast to the recordings of their previous few albums, all four Beatles and Martin have reported positive recollections of the sessions. George Harrison recalled, "We did actually perform like musicians again." Despite this, tension remained in the group. In June, during the recording sessions, Lennon and Ono were involved in a car accident. The doctor told Ono to rest in bed, so Lennon had one installed in the studio so she could observe the recording process from there. Yoko's permanent residence at recordings was not welcomed by George, Ringo or Paul, whom she often clashed with. According to one member of the studio personnel, there was an incident where Yoko had gotten out of bed, moved over to Harrison's Leslie speaker, which had a packet of digestive biscuits on top, opened the packet and delicately removed a single biscuit. In retaliation, George screamed, "That bitch!" A heated argument with Lennon ensued, all while Yoko remains happily munching away in the studio. The fracture between the members shows in the final album. During the sessions, Lennon expressed a desire to have all of his songs on one side of the album and McCartney's on the other. The album's two halves represented a compromise. Lennon wanted a traditional release with distinct and unrelated songs, while McCartney and Martin wanted to continue their thematic approach from Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by incorporating a medley. The first track on the album is Come Together, which was inspired by a request from Timothy Leary to write a song for his campaign for Governor of California against Ronald Reagan. John Lennon recalled, "The thing was created in the studio. It's gobbledygook. Come Together was an expression that Leary had come up with for his attempt at being president or whatever he wanted to be, and he asked me to write a campaign song. I tried and tried, but I couldn't come up with one, but I came up with this, Come Together, which would have been no good to him. You couldn't have a campaign song like that, right? The next track, Something, written by George Harrison, was considered by McCartney to be the best song Harrison had written, and was John Lennon's favourite song on the album.
The LP is the Come Together song, which is your vocal, and is it in fact you wrote the song as well?
Yes.
I've heard whispers that it will be the next American single.
No, if anything, it might be the B-side. I think we probably put Something out as a single out there. I think that's about the best track on the album, actually, George's track.
A promotional clip was shot for this song in late October, by which time the individual Beatles had grown so far apart that the resulting video was of separate clips of each Beatle walking around his home, accompanied by his wife, edited together. As Rob Sheffield of the Rolling Stone magazine put it, each Beatle looks like he's found what he was looking for, but they're heading for 4 separate futures. Maxwell's Silver Hammer, McCartney's first song on the album, is well known for its tense recording. Paul, a perfectionist, pressured his bandmates to work at length on the song. At one point, Lennon declared that it was more of Paul's granny music and left the session. Ringo remembered it in 2008 as the worst session ever, and the worst track they ever had to record.
Oh, darling.
The next song, Oh Darling, was also a McCartney contribution. A fun fact about this song is that it was also attempted during the Get Back sessions, and a take from this recording was released on the Anthology 3 compilation album, where you can hear the following announcement from Lennon.
Just heard that Yoko's divorce has just gone through. Free at last, I'm free.
Next up is Octopus's Garden, Ringo's only song on the album and the second he ever wrote for the Beatles. Harrison described his interpretation of the song as, I think it's a really great song, because on the surface it's just like a Daft Kid song, but the lyrics are great. For me, I find very deep meaning in the lyrics, which Ringo probably doesn't see, but all the things like resting our head on the seabed, and we'll be warm beneath the storm, which is really great, because it's like this level is a storm, and if you get sort of deep in your consciousness, it's very peaceful. So Ringo's writing his cosmic songs without noticing. The final track on side 1 is I Want You, She's So Heavy, which was written by Lennon about his relationship with Yoko Ono. It contains just 14 words, and originally lasted 8 minutes and 4 seconds, but Lennon decided on a surprise ending. During the final edit, he told engineer Jeff Emerick to cut it right here, at the 7:44 mark, bringing the song and side 1 of Abbey Road to an abrupt end. Opening side 2, Here Comes the Sun was written by George Harrison. He recalled, Here Comes the Sun was written at the time when Apple was getting like school, where we had to go and be businessmen, sign this and sign that. Anyway, it seems as if winter in England goes on forever. By the time spring comes to you, you really deserve it. So one day I decided I was going to sag off Apple and I went over to Eric Clapton's house. The relief of not having to go and see all those dopey accountants was wonderful, and I walked around the garden with one of Eric's acoustic guitars and wrote Here Comes the Sun. The next track, Because, started when Yoko Ono, a classically trained pianist, was playing Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Lying on their sofa listening, John Lennon asked her to play the chords backwards, and wrote Because around the result.
Yoko plays classical piano, and she was playing one day, and I don't know whether it was Beethoven or something. I said, give me them chords backwards, and I wrote Because on it, on top of it.
Moonlight Sonata.
Oh, Moonlight Sonata, backwards.
Backwards.
Something like that.
The rest of side 2 is a 16-minute medley of 8 short songs, some of which were written and even recorded in demo form during the White Album sessions. The first track recorded for the medley was the opening number, You Never Give Me Your Money. A complaint about the Beatles' business wranglings of early 1969, this song was written by Paul. Similarly to Lennon's track Happiness is a Warm Gun from the White Album, You Never Give Me Your Money is a suite of varying styles, ranging from a piano-led ballad at the start to arpeggiated guitars at the end. It then transitions into Lennon's Sun King, which, like Because, showcases Lennon, McCartney and Harrison's triple-tracked harmonies. Following it are Lennon's Mean Mr. Mustard and Polythene Pam, both of which were demoed for the White Album.
Mr. Mustard sleeps in the park, shaves in the dark, trying to save paper. Well, you should see polythene pan. She's so good looking, but she looks like a man.
These in turn are followed by 4 McCartney songs. She Came In Through the Bathroom Window, written after a fan entered McCartney's residence via his bathroom window, Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight, which features chorus vocals from all 4 Beatles, and closing with The End. The End features Starr's only drum solo in the Beatles' catalogue, and ends with the memorable final line,
And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make.
Following this is the hidden track Her Majesty, which was recorded by McCartney on his own. It was not initially meant to be a hidden track, however, first appearing between Mean Mr Mustard and Polythene Pam in the medley early on in the sessions. McCartney asked for it to be cut since he disliked its placement, but second engineer John Kurlander, who had been instructed not to throw out anything, attached the track to the end of the master tape after 20 seconds of silence. The tape box bore an instruction to leave Her Majesty off the final product, but the next day when mastering engineer Malcolm Davies received the tape, he, also told not to throw anything away, cut a test record of the whole sequence, including Her Majesty. The Beatles liked this effect and included it on the final album. And that's Abbey Road. Upon release on the 26th of September, initial critical reception was mixed, some not liking the electronic sound and finding it inauthentic, but since then many critics have cited Abbey Road as the Beatles' best and finest album, with its diverse array of genres including blues, rock and pop, and it has topped lists of the best albums of all time. In particular, Something and Here Comes the Sun are considered among the best songs George Harrison wrote for the group. Its album cover is not only iconic, but one of the most famous and imitated images in popular music, and the album's initially mixed reviews were contrasted by its immediate commercial success, topping record charts in the UK and the US. Yet, unbeknownst to the fans and the press of the time alike, 6 days before Abbey Road was released, John Lennon informed the rest of the group that he was leaving.